Hello everyone and welcome back to Eckert's Garden Center. Well, it's been a very dismal, rainy and gloomy few days here at Eckert's. So today I'm going to show you some plants that make for a great rain garden. Before we begin, there are some things you need to know. A rain garden is not the same thing as a wetland garden or a marsh garden. You don't want to create these boggy conditions that are going to be ideal for mosquitoes to form. So it's actually a tool that is used to draw water away from the foundation of your home. So it'll take the extra wash off from your downspouts and from your driveways, and it'll actually hold it in the garden, and then it'll release it back into the soil. And this is great for a number of reasons. It's going to reduce all the contaminants that you normally have, like oil, pesticides, fertilizers, that typically are drawn straight into those storm drains and go straight out to our main bodies of water. This is actually going to trap all that stuff, and the plants that we're going to show you are going to work on removing those things over time. So it's utilitarian, it's going to be beautiful, and it's great for pollinators and other wildlife. So let's take a look. So what I've got here is kind of a mock-up. Now this is not to scale. A lot of these plants are just shoved in here so that you have an idea of what you can use, but you don't want to plant them this close. We're going to start with my central focus, which this right here is a wild hydrangea or Annabelle hydrangea. It's good for sun or shade, and it's going to have these gorgeous white flowers later on closer to summer. This plant is in the center right now, but this plant can get up to 5 or 6 feet in terms of height and width. So you want to make sure that you definitely give a little bit of space in between these plants so that it doesn't choke them out. Now, for the rain garden, we're not going to go deeply into how to construct it. We're going to leave that for you to do yourselves, but we will talk about what you need to do in order for the plants to be successful. So I've selected all native varieties. So these are plants that do well here. And the reason for that is that native perennials typically have root structures that will go deep down, so they will help that water permeate in, and the plants have a better chance of surviving than if you were to pick something more conventional or showy. So starting from the back here, this right here is a soft rush. And this particular plant, it even says it on the tag that it is great for rain gardens. So if you start a rain garden from scratch, this is a good one to have simply because you know it's going to do very well. And also, depending on where the water is coming in, it can kind of be a buffer so that it doesn't wash all your brand new plants out. This kind of filters all that extra water before it comes in. You want it to be kind of a scalloped shape, so the edges are a little bit higher and the center is where the water is going to collect. So what we've got with this arrangement, the plants that are on the exterior are the plants that prefer it a little bit more dry, and the plants that like it a little bit more wet are in the center. So moving on, we've also got this beautiful swamp milkweed, and we've probably talked about this before in some of the previous videos. It's great for monarch butterfly conservation. It's also a beautiful and reliable perennial. We've got her sister right here. This is the orange variety, Asclepius Tuberosa. So this one likes it a little bit more dry, whereas this incarnata wants it a little bit more wet. So I would put this one closer to the center, whereas this one would be more on the margin. We also have, this is a blue sage, and it looks a little bit different from your typical sage because it's a little bit more thin and wiry, but it's still going to have those gorgeous flowers that you would expect to attract all sorts of pollinators. Once again, more on the exterior, so that it can survive on the edges where there's not as much water regularly. And then down here, so this girl is called golden groundsel. It's a pachyra. This is related to ragwort. So when you plant it and it flowers, you're going to think, oh my gosh, I planted a weed. Well, that's okay. It's actually meant, think about what it's meant for. It's meant for preservation and for basically the purpose is to drive the water down. So this is a great plant that likes a lot of water. So even though it's going to have a weedy looking flower, it is a great reliable plant and I highly recommend it. We've also got, this is an iris right here. This is a crested iris. She won't get as tall as a lot of the irises that you've seen before, but she is going to have this gorgeous foliage that's going to continue to thrive even throughout the summer, which is kind of rare for an iris. This one likes it a little bit more wet, so near the center it goes. And then this is actually a native sedum. So this isn't going to have the showiest flowers, but it's going to do really well here, and it's just going to continue to spill. I would definitely mark the margins of your bed with this one so that it can kind of spill over. Moving on, I've also got this Phytostegia. This is an obedient plant, and if you can see those flowers right there, they're kind of similar to the Penstemon, the bearded foxglove, and this plant can also be replaced with the lobelia that we've seen in some of the other videos. It likes a lot of water, so deeper into the center it goes. This right here This golden Alexander, heartleaf golden Alexander zizia, is great for pollinator conservation because bees love it, but also black swallowtails will feed on that as caterpillars. So that one's going to go on the exterior because it likes it a little bit more dry. We've also got, this is one of my favorites. So this is a spiderwort. Can you see those flowers? Once this plant becomes established, it's just going to be a spray of these gorgeous purple flowers. There's a tag right there, Tradescantia. And this one is definitely a thriller. I'm going to stick that right back where I got it. We've also got this variety of Rudbeckia that they're calling the Gloriosa Daisy. You can see that this is just going to have gorgeous flowers later on. Once again, a little bit more on the dry side, so we're going to stick her near the exterior. And then finally, we've already featured this plant once before, but it's also great in this application, the Penstemon Foxglove Beard Tongue. This one likes a lot of water, so keep it closer to the center. And if you don't want something so large as this wild hydrangea, you can substitute with basically either the Penstemon or anything else that's really tall and just plant them in mass so that you still get that height and that beauty without the overwhelming factor. Now this whole garden is meant for the sun, but if you have an area that's more shade, you can also substitute some of these beauties right here. These are all shade worshipers. So we've got this Polemonium right here. She's not in bloom anymore, but you can see from that picture she has these adorable purple bell-shaped flowers and this gorgeous leaf or fern-like leaf foliage right here. And then here, right here is a Phlox, which we're commonly calling a wild sweet William. This one actually tolerates shade. Oftentimes we don't expect Phlox to do well in the shade, but this one will, and there's even one flower still left on there so you can see what it does. And then finally, the Celandine Poppy. This girl's almost done. She's an earlier bloomer, but you can see a little bit of the remnants of the flowers left. Oh, there's they fall off, but they are a gorgeous yellow flower, and if you put that in a dark, shady spot, it's just going to sing with delight. So that's all for today, folks. We hope that you enjoyed. Please stay dry, and until next time, happy planting.